Welcome, Ram, to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Aurora Borealis, this new album, and more things related to the metal world. Well, starting with a common question. How have you been during these crazy times? We started a pandemic 2 years ago, now a war in Europe. So who knows what happened next couple of years? Alien invasion, zombie apocalypse, or the machine takes the power?
No, man, I'm good. I've been good, believe it or not. Even though this pandemic worldwide was pretty massive, for me, it really, to be honest with you, was sort of a positive thing because when everything was shutting down around me, I decided that I was going to stay open. My business was going to stay open. My studio was going to stay open. So what happened was there was a lot of people that wanted to record records, but they couldn't because everything was closed. So they found me and I was open. So my business pretty much doubled during the pandemic. So it actually worked out really, really well for me. And I know it was a lot of chaos worldwide and a lot of people were dying and that's obviously horrible. But for me, it actually worked out really well.
Okay, nice to hear that. Nice to hear. Well, talking about the band in general, Aurora Borealis was always an accelerated band with a lot of rage in their way of making music. So what have been the ingredients or feelings that you used to make a new band album?
Yeah, man, we always tried from day one. We always tried to be like aggressive and intense and things like that. We never went for like the keyboards. We never went for the atmospheric stuff. And those kind of things are great. There's no doubt about that. But for us, man, it's always been relentless, full throat, full throttle, gung ho all the way. So when I start making a record, man, I just sit down. I start with what tempos I want to play at. I just sit down and I write riffs. Half of them I throw away if they're not intense enough. The other half I'll keep. I'll start putting stuff together, feel how it feels good. I'll send it to my drummer. I'll let him throw some ideas down, and we'll go back and forth for like a month or two on drum ideas. And once we iron it all out, we just sort of put it together, and then we'll send it out to the bass guys. And vocals are last. Vocals are always last. After the music is put together, then I'll start writing the melody lines or the vocal lines. And sometimes I don't even write lyrics right away. I just write, the patterns, and then I'll sort of fill in the lyrics because I like to take my time with that. So I'll sort of fill in the lyrics a little bit later, but that's kind of how we do it. It's been the process ever since our first record in like 1995 or 1996. It hasn't changed much at all, to be honest with you. We've sort of stayed true to our sound. We've added a little bit of sci-fi elements here and there, but for the most part, we haven't changed much, and that's sort of how we do it from day one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. For me, especially this one, because when I hear for the first time praise and archaic like Embrace for your first album, always remind me a lot of rage, a lot of furious music, but at the same time a lot of technical, but without this kind of touch that now the new bands put technical death metal. There's right. You are more death black with technical stuff. So how do you see now the music with this aspect, technical death metal around the world? Because I think you are one of the first bands in the world that use this accelerated rhymes, schemes, but with technical stuff.
Yeah, so I agree completely with what you said. We sort of walk that fine line between writing, cool, simple riffs, but occasionally we'll get technical as well. But we don't take it over the top because, like you said, there's so many over the top technical bands now where it seems like that's all they're doing is just seeing how technical they can be, but they forget about the actual songs. So you still got to have good songs. I mean, we can all sit around and write technical music all day, but it's got to make sense in the end. And for me, it's about song structure. I can write a string of riffs, but I like to come back to a riff. I like to have a chorus. I like to have a verse. I like to have, almost like regular song structure in death black metal, sort of like some of the European, thrash metal bands are doing it, like Creator or those kind of bands. Like they have songs, and that's sort of what I'm into, is writing songs. Some of that technical stuff that the new, like you said, quote unquote technical bands are doing, as amazing as it is, it's almost not listenable because it's just a string of riffs thrown together with not much else involved. And I love hearing it for like a few minutes, but after that, I've got to turn it off. So I agree completely with exactly what you're saying. We try to remain technical, but more so furious with songs, if that makes sense.
Okay, okay. Well, when I talk a lot, when a lot of people around the world talking about the Dead Black, especially in Europe and US, always bring us this kind of aspect. What kind of difference exists when you compare the black death metal from Europe, especially talking about the necrophobic stuff in the 90s or grotesque in the 90s too from Swedish, compared to the Angel Corpse music from US, because
Yeah.
it's the first band for me there, and for perhaps Impiety from Singapore, who knows? But for you, it's different. You play more clean. Sorry, your music is
Yeah.
more clean than the Angel Corpse. Angel Corpse
Yeah.
is more. It's like influence with the one, like Sarcophago, like the so from
Right.
old stuff from South America. But your music always was clean. So how do you
Well,
get into this involved to do the dead black metal stuff? Usually a lot of blast beat, a lot of fastness music, but with a clean music.
Well, there's a couple things. So most of my favorite Europe music comes from Europe. Whether it be black metal or the thrash metal, because I like all the old Creator, the Coroner, the Sodom. I like the Dark Funeral, the Ethereal, the Norjev. Like I love all of those bands. And Peter Taktrin, he was producing all this black metal back in the day. That it was still raw, but he started to make it clean sounding. You understood it as opposed to the super raw recordings. So at Abyss Studios, I'd sort of taken a lot of influence from Peter Taktrin when he was recording all those old school bands. And the thing is, for an Angel Corpse, I love Angel Corpse too. They're super aggressive, super intense, but it's almost like it's borderline sloppy, if that makes sense. It's very like thrown together in a rough way, which is really awesome for Angel Corpse, because I think that album, The Inexorable, is amazing. I love that record top to bottom. So, but it is very aggressive and in your face and sort of, mushed together, if that makes sense. Where I've always tried to follow more of the European thing, where it's all, you do understand what's happening. Not to mention a lot of those European bands, especially the black metal bands, they put a little bit of melody in their lines. Instead of just playing two rhythm guitars, they'll put a nice little harmony or a nice little, minor sort of guitar lines over top of what they do, and they add melody, which I always thought was awesome too. So I'm trying to take the Angel Corpse aggression, the Morbid Angel, the Angel Corpse, all this other stuff, and mix it with sort of the black metal stuff like this Ethereal or the Dark Funeral. I really like Dark Funeral a lot. I think especially their last couple of records, they've even outdone themselves from, Secrets of the Black Arts and those kind of records. So I try to just blend it all together, but you're right. I do find myself, tinging more on the black metal side. And then when this is my studio here behind me. So when I'm in my studio, I take a lot of time to really make sure everything's clean and precise, because I do like 4 layers of guitars all the time for rhythms. And if you're doing that, you got to play it super, super tight. Otherwise, it just turns into mush. So, I'll do things like I'll time align the drums to make sure they're perfectly in time. And I'll just make sure everything is super, super tight, so that if I'm doing a technical riff, you hear all the notes in the technical riff. So from the production side of things, I do try to keep it super clean and add the elements of the European stuff. And that's sort of how I try to do it.
Yeah. Well, your music always bring cream, fastness, and rage. That's amazing for that aspect. So for you, I'm talking about this aspect from this new album, The Prophecy is the Mole, in which history is poured. A huge name from this new album.
Almost like the other, Praise the Archaic Lights and Praise. That was a long one too. Praise the Archaic Lights and Praise.
Yeah. So for you, what is the biggest difference exists from your last album 4 years ago?
Yeah, it was a while. The biggest difference I think this time is we were sort of rushed on the last one. Okay, we signed a record deal like prematurely, so I sort of told people the album was done when it wasn't done, and I thought I was going to have it done, and then some other stuff came up, and then so I sort of had to rush the production of the last album, and it still sounds really, really, really good because they gave me a little extra time. So the songs were all structured, everything was good, but I think on this one I upped the production level a little bit because I didn't have any boundaries. I had no deadlines. I had nothing to follow, except I never even told anybody it was done, or even I was making it until it was completed, and then I started shopping. So it was 100% done before it ever went to any record label. So I just was able to take my time more. And I think the production really ramped up in value. Of course, we increased our speeds a little bit. You know, we tried to make it a little bit faster, a little bit more intense. But that's the biggest thing. The production level is higher, and I think a little bit more time has been spent on the songwriting because there was no deadlines. And, you know, no deadlines was also cool because we were able to film a couple, you know, music videos, and we had all the time in the world to work with, which was awesome.
Oh, okay. Well, with more than with more than 8 albums in your career, because it's very difficult to see, no, to see which album is the best ones for you, because all your albums are your sons. That's the
Right.
way. So, but
Everyone's
for
better.
but for the musician, well, no, not for the musicians, for the fans, from the reviewers, and from the people in general, they think that the first two are the great ones in the career from Aurora Borealis. It's a common thing, because you think like this. You are a fan from the music from the 80s and 90s, and you
Right.
think from your influence you are like as you said, you creator, Sodom, this kind of mass. Your first 3 albums are the best ones for you. That's a common thing. So relating to this, and I come to predicting the one. So for you, which is the best album from Aurora Borealis, talking about the fans, for you especially? Yeah. Or perhaps you think like all the bands thinks around the world, the last album is the best work until today.
So here's the thing. So if I'm going to isolate albums for the fans, it seems like everyone always talks about Praise the Archaic Lights Embrace. That's what everyone talks about. When you know, if you look online, those are the ones that sell for the most money all the time. Anytime I'm contacted by a record label or somebody trying to do merchandise, they're always trying to do merchandise for Praise the Archaic Lights Embrace, patches, flags, whatever. They're always trying to do that because that's a very popular record. The funny thing is, I don't like that record too much. I think it's really good at the time, and I thought it was a good record at the time, but I think the production sounds really bad on it. The guy that recorded it, I just don't think he did a good job on it. If you really listen to it, the timing is not super tight on it because it was rushed. We had to make it in like 4 days or something like that. So I do like some of the songs and some of the riffs and things like that. It's a good record, but it's not my favorite record by any means, but even though everyone else likes it. So obviously, I think my new record is always the best to me because I tried it. I always think if you're not getting better, you should probably not release the record. So if you've made a worse record than your previous record, you should probably go back to the drawing board and do it again or start writing again. So I'm always trying to make a better record. Every one that comes out, better. And I think I've succeeded this time. But if you're talking about from a pure passion standpoint, we released a record called Northern Lights. And all the way from the front cover to the riffs to the black metal elements, I really like that record a lot. Like even after all these years, I think that might have came out in like 2000 or something like that, and it's still one of my favorite records to this day. So I have 3 things: Praise the Archaic Lights for the fans, Northern Lights as far as nostalgia and what I think is a good record, and I wish I could redo Northern Lights right now. And obviously the latest record, I really love it. And I listen to my own music, man. I listen to it all the time, and I really like it, you know?
Okay. So talking about the one aspect of and related to the new generation, talking about the one song, 2 songs. We are in a cyclic time now because, as you remember, we in the 40s and 50s, the people listening the music with 1, 2, or maximum 3 or maximum 5 singles from and play live. So that's the way. But now we are in a cyclic time, returning to this aspect. So if we try to relate these new forms of this returning to the past into the listeners, talking about 25, 20, or 15 people, or 15 years old people. So for you, which is the best song that they capture whole essence from this prophecy is the mold in which in history is poured?
So there's a video coming out in 4 days on Friday. The song is called Founding Fathers of Deception. That's the one we're releasing last because we think it's the one that relates to most people. So we released a video called The House of Nimrod, where it was full throttle, strangle you by the throat nonstop, which was one of my favorites because that's what I like. So I like Dark Funeral. So like, those kind of bands that just go full throttle all the time. So that was my favorite song. But the one we're about to release, we think is going to be the best for everybody else, the fans, because, you know, people like hooks, they like groove. See, we're not trying to shoot for the super underground fan, even though that's nice. They may like the House of Nimrod, but we're also trying to write songs so that the average metal listener can enjoy it. Whether you listen to, you know, Iron Maiden or Cythereal, we're trying to write a song that everyone can relate to. And the founding fathers of Deception that's coming out, we think we got it, because that's got the groove elements in it. It's still got the fast elements in it, but it's also got hooks that you can sing along to very easily. You know, sort of chanty style hooks. So we think that's going to be the one for everybody. We think that's the one that wraps up most of the record.
Okay, nice to hear that. So for me, I'm a huge fan from the music since the 1998 and to the last record, because I love the fastness, I love the rage, as I told you in the previous questions. So for you, and I'm talking for you, what is the biggest difference that exists into the black death metal from US from Europe? Because you said one thing, the Europe is more melodic, more archaic in some parts, but with you, Angel Corpse, and other bands into these are more and all with and how do you find the best drummer for your each album? Because all the time you change the lineup. I saw a lot of you change the lineup, and for me it's very difficult to find now, but now it's very easy to find a drummer, because a lot of drummers playing in YouTube play drum covers. So, but when you start the band, always you try to find the best drummer around the world. Try to see which more faster, because into this album, as you said, you try to do more faster. I think you go over 300 beats per minute or more, because that's way. So how do you find these aspects in the music?
Yeah, so there's a couple things to answer the first part of your question. Going back to the, you know, the black metal of Europe and the black metal of America. So I don't find, and I'm not being insulting to Americans or whatever, but I don't find very many black metal bands I like from America. They really seem subpar to the European bands to me. The European bands got the speed, they got the production, they have the melody, and they have the songs, like the songs that just feel good and bring an atmosphere to it. And they invoke a certain feeling that you can't get. I don't get that from American black metal bands, first of all. I don't, right off the top of my head, I can't really think of a pure black metal band from America that I enjoy that much. But I do enjoy a lot of American death metal, obviously. You know, I enjoy a lot of European death metal too, like Seance. I like that old stuff, man. I like the Unleashed. I like the Seance. I like all that kind of stuff. The old grave stuff, that's tremendous to me. But so yeah, I do find that's the biggest difference. The American black metal just doesn't have it for me. Now, as far as the drummers, we don't change lineups because we want to. So what happens is, every time I get a drummer, all the way back to the beginning, you know, I had Tony Laureano on the first EP, and he went on to, you know, drum for many of the giant bands. He drummed for Angel Corpse, he drummed for Dimmu Borgir, he drummed for, he even did some shows for Megadeth at one time or another. I was actually rehearsing with, you remember a band called Brutality from America?
Yeah. So I love their three first records.
Yeah, great. They're great records, man. So he was a guy named Jim, was a drummer for Brutality. And I hooked up with Jim, and he was working on the first EP with me, the Mansions of Eternity EP. And I kept going I rehearsed with him 2 or 3 times, but he didn't have it. He didn't have the speed. And he liked to take breaks a lot. And I'm a very intense person. I like to just work. I'll work for 8 hours straight on a song if I have to. But he also, he smoked a lot, which I don't care, but he was always busy smoking and taking breaks. And it didn't, you know, he's a great drummer, a great band, Brutality. But I heard another guy playing next door in the next bay. And I was like, yo, Jim, who is that? That guy's really killing it over there. So he told me, and I ended up calling up, remember a band called Monstrosity?
Okay.
Yeah. So I called up the drummer for Monstrosity. I said, who was that over there playing in your bay? And he said, it was Tony. So I said, man, let me get his number for you. And he was playing with like Acheron or something like that at the time. So I got his number and I went and met with him and I played him the demo. And he said, oh man, he said, I told him I was going into Morrisound Studios, you know, Scott Burns, the biggest studio at the time. And he said, man, I'll have this stuff learned in a week. And I was like, man, you're full of shit. You're never going to have this work done. And I came back in a week, man, and he was killing it. He had everything perfect. Okay. So we recorded the first CD, and then he went and he, you know, I guess he had a lot of contacts or something. He started playing for one of the bigger bands out there, like an Angel Corpse or something like that. So we parted on good terms. I needed a new drummer. So I went to Atlanta and I found, or South Carolina, and I found another guy, Derek Roddy, who later went on to play for the, you know, some of the biggest bands in the whole world. So we recorded that Praise the Archaic Lights EP, and we recorded the Northern Lights CD. And then by that time, people heard him and they knew he was amazing. And then he left and went to play for a bunch of other bands. So we parted on good terms. You know, everything's always on good terms. We always part on good terms. Then I called up a guy named Tim Young. He played for Hate Eternal, and he played for like Fear Factory now and all these bands
Morbid
like
Angel.
that. Yeah, Morbid Angel. He plays for all those bands. So I got him on a record. And after I got him, he went and played for Hate Eternal. And it's like, but I can't blame him because I'm a smaller band. You know, I'm not as big as those bands. So you have to say, you know, go. You have to give them credit for going because they're much bigger bands. Plus, I don't tour, and they want to tour. So then Tony came back for a record. That was the Relinquish record. We had some issues. We had a little bit of bumping heads on that one. So that was the last record we did. And then I put out an audition tape. I released one of my songs, and I said, I just want to hear drummers play to this. If you want to audition for my band, because at this time I've had the 3 biggest drummers in the world playing for me. So, you know, a lot of drummers wanted to play for me at this point. So I put out a song and let them play to it. And at the last day, that guy, Mark Green, sent me a video. He was recommended to me from Derek Roddy because, you know, we're still on good terms. Mark Green sent me a video of him playing, and it was just amazing. And I called him up, and he told me he wasn't even going to send it. And he sent it. And ever since then, he's recorded every single record from the last 4 because we get along so well. And I love his ideas. He's technical, but he still knows how to play a simple beat if he has to. And yeah, so we're not changing because we want to. It's because we have to. And I'm hoping Mark sticks around for the next 4 albums because we work so well together.
Okay. So into this matter, not talking about the lineup, you are the last member since the beginning to now.
Yeah.
So how was the sensations to bring this band from the 90s to now? Change a lot of the music in the music industry today. It's more than 20 years, but the music industry changed a lot. So how do you find now you have your studio? How do you find it now, the digital era, etc., etc.?
Well, I certainly I certainly prefer analog equipment. You know, the digital stuff is great. I prefer still analog. My studio has a lot of analog stuff in it because I find that it sounds warmer. The problem with the digital age is it's not necessarily the technology, it's the way you can easily attain the technology. So the problem is we have a lot of bands, you know, that really shouldn't be making records right now, that are making records because they have access to a $200 version of Pro Tools. So then they put it in their basement and they make a record, but really the record shouldn't be made because the band isn't ready. See, a long time ago, you had to save up money to go into a studio, and it was a lot of money. It cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So if a band wasn't serious, they didn't make a record. So that's why we like all the old stuff, because all the bands were good. Now we have to weed through 1,000 bands to find 2 good ones. And that's the biggest problem with the digital age is there's just too much stuff on the market, and 90% of it isn't good because the bands aren't ready. As far as me being the original member, like even with the bass players, it's not because I want to be. I had an issue. I had one bass player pretty much for all the records until the latest one, and we had a falling out because I have a certain work ethic, and if you don't meet that work ethic criteria, I don't really care how long we've had a relationship. I have to move forward. So even with the bass players, it's not that I want to be getting new members. It's that I have to get new members. But yeah, so that's sort of the digital. I hope that answered the digital question for you.
Okay.
The new age.
Okay. So talking about one of your projects, because Imperial Crystalline in Tomb.
Oh
I
yeah,
really love that record. I didn't know that you played in that record. Just when I tried to find more information about you, about Aurora, I say, whoa, ICE. I love that band because
thank
I
you.
got the CD. It was very difficult to find that CD.
Yes,
I think the copies in Disco GS are more than 40
yeah.
euros or 50 euros. It's too expensive. So what are your expectations to release a new album with that band? Because I say, for me, Apocalyptic and In a White are aged very well. Really,
Well,
really.
thank you. It's so funny that you asked that question because there's a lot happening with ICE right now. So we were contacted by a small record label, and they inquired about re-releasing the Apocalyptic End in White on vinyl. So we signed an agreement. So there's an Apocalyptic End in White coming out on vinyl, probably within the next 2 months or so. It should be out because Crash Music has folded. So whatever rights they had, they don't have the rights anymore because they don't exist. So we've signed an agreement to re-release that because it's hard to find those copies in America. Those things go for 60 or 70 bucks a piece, and I could reprint them because I have the rights to it, but I almost don't want to reprint the CD because I like the fact that it's hard to find and it's sort of cult and it's underground. But the funny thing is, I just finished writing an entire new ICE record that's going to be a 20-year anniversary to Apocalyptic End in White. So it's done. The drums have been recorded. I'm actually editing them. I was editing them today. So I'm gonna be editing for a little while, probably another month or so, and then I'm gonna record guitars for it, and then I'm gonna send it to the vocalist, and he's gonna start lyrics. So we have a record. It's gonna be released. We're gonna shop it. We're not gonna. It's probably not gonna be done for another 6 months or so, just because I'm so booked at my studio. So I'd say in about 6 months, we're gonna have a new record ready that we're gonna start shopping to labels, and it's good, man. It's a good record. It's a good record. And the funny thing about that band is we did it sort of as a joke to begin with. It was sort of a joke. We said we're going to sort of make a mockery of black metal. We all love black metal, right? We love it. So, but we think it's kind of silly too, how we wear spikes and paint our faces, and it's kind of silly, but it's still awesome. So we said we're going to do the opposite. We're going to put on all white, and we're going to wear white robes, and we're not going to play nothing but blast beats and make it as fast as we can. But the funny thing is, people loved it, and the record label picked it up. We didn't even think it was going to be released, so we got one, man. A 20-year CD coming out. So that came out 20 years ago next year, and we're going to release a brand new record next year.
Great to know that, because I'm a huge fan for that band.
Thank you.
We are very close to end this interview, Ron. And for that, what are the future plans that Aurora Borealis has for this new album? Perhaps tours, dates, tours, perhaps live, or who knows, European tour or Latin American tour, who knows?
Yeah. Well, so for right now we're in that sort of promotional mode where we're doing these interviews pretty much every day, whether it be written or whether it be Zoom or what have you. So we're really in the promo stage right now. We released the first video last month. The new video comes out this month. The album comes out November 4th. The album comes out. And then I've already started writing new Aurora material too, because I just live in a recording studio. That's what I do. So I'm constantly writing. So I've already written a new Aurora record. I can't say that we're going to play any shows or tours unless something really good comes along. I stopped touring a long time ago with one of my original bands that I was in, and touring's never really been great for me. It's a lot of grinding and little bit of, I don't do this for money. Obviously I do it just because I love black metal. I make my money at the studio. So there's very little payoff to touring, in the end, other than that 1 hour you get on stage every night, but the other 23 hours just sort of suck when you tour. So unless the right thing comes along, it's possible, but not likely right now. But I say never say never.
Okay. Well, Ron, the sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoy this one like me. Doing this
awesome.
one is a pleasure to talk with you for Aurora Borealis, for ICE. It's a huge news that you got me about the new record the next year. I hope the new album maintain this savage because
It
ice
does.
is more savage than Aurora Borealis, more raw in some aspects. So I hope this new record maintain this as because I love this kind of music. So perhaps we wanna. Oh, nice to hear that. So perhaps we wanna add something to your Latin American fans and Metalerium followers.
Well, man, first of all, thank you, because you know, we don't get much exposure. You know, we're really underground. We don't get much exposure. So, man, thank you first of all for just interviewing us. We really appreciate that. We need more of these kind of things to kind of get our band out there. And I know we're in an age where mail costs a lot of money now and this kind of thing. But I'd say, man, all your readers, just man, get in touch with us because we respond to every single person. You know, we're not like these big, you know, these big black metal bands. We enjoy talking to people and fans. Man, some nights I'll be sitting on the internet, some nights just having a 30-minute chat with just a random person that that texted me or started emailing me. And I really enjoy just talking to metal fans, man. So I just say to all your readers and wherever they're from around the whole world, just get in touch with us, man, because we like chatting with people. We like talking, you know, we like metal.